But keeping with the topic of growth, on the wrong track, Idahoans weigh in on state's fast growth. This comes from the Boise Dev by Donde. According to the latest Idaho Public Policy Survey conducted by GS Strategies, a significant number of Idaho residents believe the state is growing too quickly. The survey, which has become an annual barometer of public opinion, reveals a growing unease about the pace of development and the direction the state is heading. A small plurality of Idahoans, 42%, think the state is on the wrong track, with 40% believing that it's on the right track. However, the sentiment is sharply divided along party lines. A majority of Republicans feel Idaho is moving in the right direction, largely due to its conservative leanings, while Democrats and independents express concern about the state being too conservative and the cost of living. The issue of growth is a reoccurring theme in the survey's history. A staggering 69% of respondents feel that Idaho's growth is too rapid, with concerns echoed by both long-term residents and newcomers alike. This sentiment is strong among Republicans, with 75.8% feeling that growth is too fast, compared to 53.8% of Democrats and 69% of independents. As Idaho's population nears the 2 million mark, a partisan split is emerging among new arrivals, with a higher percentage identifying as Republicans compared to long-standing Idahoans. We talked about that briefly in a couple of those stories. This shift could have lasting political implications for the state. The survey also highlights Idahoans' top priorities for the legislature: education, jobs, the economy, and notably housing. The cost of living and inflation are the primary economic concerns, with a significant number of Idahoans, especially renters, feeling the strain of housing costs on their family finances. With property taxes perceived as too high and the challenge of finding affordable housing looming large, Idahoans are calling for legislative action. The survey's findings paint a picture of a state at a crossroads, grappling with the consequences of its popularity and growth. Which, a lot of things to unpack there. We're not going to get into all of them because we'd be here for a couple hours. Which, maybe down the line, if we had a paid segment, we'd do that, but we don't, and so we're not going to. But I guess the one that jumped out to me is that when you looked at the demographics of how they looked at how long the person was here and then how they voted on the survey was interesting. New Idahoans said that the state is heading in the right direction by a 49.3% to 29.8% margin, with 21 undecided. And then folks that have been here longer than 10 years actually flipped that around, with 45.9% stating that the state is in the wrong track versus 38.2% saying it's on the right track, and 15.9% being undecided, which I thought that was interesting, that if you're a new Idahoan, it's like, oh yeah, it's on the right track. I'm here. I'm really glad. I'm excited to be here, right? This is new. This is fresh. The honeymoon phase, one could call it, right? And then as folks are here for about a 10-year, then that flips the other direction. And then they're saying 45% of those people are being like, nope, this is wrong. We're going in the wrong direction. Everything's bad. It wasn't as great as when I got here, which maybe that's just human nature when something's new. I feel like a lot of that's the case. But on the other hand, I do feel like another element of that is that people are getting more connected in that community and used to, and getting maybe a better perspective of it.
I mean, that's the nature of conservatism. You like what it used to be and you want it to stay that way.
You conserve it.
Yeah. And, as a new resident, I sit here and go, but that's not going to happen. It's just not going to work. Like, I understand. I understand your sentiment perfectly. I get it. The old thing, it seemed like it was nicer. It probably was. But Boise's no longer a sleepy little city. We saw the same thing happen in Denver. I don't know, 50 years ago. And Colorado as a whole. And Colorado became massive when this happened. So yeah, I can understand the sentiment of people who have been here for a long time, just want it to stay the same. It's not gonna.
Right.
Which sucks. But
and I mean, if I were to offer like a help or a vision to people, because I hear about it all the time. And being someone that, obviously I have not been through multiple or a ton of decades here in Idaho, but I've lived here my whole life. And I would say the place that we should look for inspiration to help with that, and I think admires that they do a great job. And obviously it can't be a one-to-one. And we talk about it often on the show off and on, but over in Europe, they've found a way that Europe is very developed compared to the United States, right? Europe has been around for a long time. There's a lot of roads. You look at it from even like a satellite or a map of the roads, right? And you about get a heart attack. Compared to the United States, when you look down, you're like, oh, look, there's the freeways, there's the thing. You go over in Europe and you're like, But they have figured out a way that you can go to a certain town, right? Even if it's a big town, and you go to a certain block or something, and yeah, it'll be about the same in 50 years. Maybe some paint will change, maybe a light stand, this and that, right? But it will stay rudimentarily the same and improve at the same time. Here in America, I feel like we struggle with that concept. Usually we're like, oh, it's new. Okay, the old was bad, so we'll flatten it, and we'll put the new shopping mall or the new building or the new thing, right? And I think we can learn a lesson from that and try to maybe learn how you do that, because Europe has found a way to do that, to develop but not lose its past identity, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
As for how you do it, that's where my solution goes short, and I would say we should invest and look into that. But yeah, Idaho isn't going to stop growing, and I think any measures which, if intended well, I know some people that are working and trying to do measures like that, it's going to backfire. It's going to backfire bad, be it if we've talked about in roads in the past. It's going to backfire, and you're going to have horrible traffic, and you're never just going to catch up with it ever again unless you completely, the town dies out and then you build it and then it comes back to life. Or if we're talking about housing, if you sit there and a city is like, yes, we're going to restrict the amount of houses that can be built anymore. This is the cap. That's going to go real bad because, okay, cool. The people that own there are going to love it. Their property rates, I feel like, are just going to skyrocket. But for their children that want to live near their parents, it's not going to happen, because if you make scarcity in the market, like with gold, right, the value is going to skyrocket because there's scarcity. If there only are 100,000 houses that can be built in that town, the value is going to go up. That as well, I don't think is a great idea, and it's going to backfire. But rather, we should look at ways of how do we grow, but we grow responsibly.
Yeah, the last thing we want to do is turn into California, where
yes, that is everyone's objective here.
Yeah, well, and the thing that California has done is they haven't built new housing, and they haven't kept up with public policy and things like that. So, yeah, we're going to grow. The question is, how do we grow?
Either you accept people are going to move here, and you figure out how to do that well, or you make it horrible for people to move here so they don't move here. So you have to pick what side of the rock you're going to be on here.
Right. Either move into the future nicely, or I guess just be a sad boy.
Yeah. I love Idahoans. I'm saying this to myself, but sometimes we can be stick in the muds. So hopefully we won't take the stick in the mud route. I'm really hoping we could take the more mature that, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and you can go jump off that bridge if you like, to no, we're our community and we should work together to have a healthy vision of what we want for the valley and for the state as a whole.
Yep.
We will move on to our next story that is actually related to one of the main points that people are worried about and also stated in the survey for our legislatures.